So you're thinking of moving to Tampa, Florida, but not exactly sure where to start? In this video, I'm going to share a complete relocation guide to help you get organized, save time, and make it as smooth of a move as possible. Let's get started. If this is your first time on the channel and you want to know everything about buying or selling in a Tampa luxury condo community, then subscribe below and tap the bell for notifications so you can be the first to know about the Tampa luxury condo market and lifestyle. My name is Nathaniel Ligon, the Tampa Condo King. I specialize in representing luxury condo owners and buyers in Tampa, Florida. I get calls every day from people just like you, so whether you're looking to buy or sell in 10 days or 10 weeks, please reach out. All my contact information is in the description box below. I would love to help you win in the Tampa luxury condo market. Now let's dive right into the relocation guide. All right, as we dive into the relocation guide, we'll start it out with the first step. And depending on what your personality is like and what your preferences are like, maybe you want to plan earlier, or maybe you're someone that is a little bit more last minute and the schedule ends up being a little bit more condensed. Regardless of who you are on those ends of the spectrum, this guide should be really helpful and be really a foundation as you look at the steps for preparing and moving. So we'll start out with the research phase. And also, by the way, this guide can help for whether you're moving from the Tampa area to another market, or of course another market to the Tampa area. It doesn't necessarily have to be, a cross-country move. Could even be someone in, for example, Miami, who's moving here to the Tampa area. So it doesn't have to be a major move. I think a lot of the information will be more helpful if you are moving from a different market, not necessarily just from like a Tampa suburb, 30 minutes away. But regardless, this information should help put you in a really good direction for the move. So again, we'll start out with the research phase, and we'll say it's about 8 weeks out from your actual move. So the research phase, exactly what it sounds like. You're going to be gathering a lot of information and doing your due diligence. So starting with some vendors that will help you with the actual move. So moving company, of course, just getting information on quotes and their processes so you can be prepared for a move and you're familiar with your options. Now you might be thinking, well, 2 months out, isn't that, a little early? I would say it's never too early, especially a lot of these moving companies, you'd be surprised, are booked out fairly well in advance. So a great market like we have here in Tampa is pretty strong year round. So we do have maybe a little bit of an uptick or a little bit of a dip at different points in the year, but nothing like other parts of the country that can see some big swings with their demand and more seasonality, so to speak. So it'll be really good for you to just get familiar with some of the moving company options, what they provide, what the exact services are, what the pricing is. So that's a great place to start your research. And then any other vendors that you'll need to help with the move and getting started in a new area. Now also, again, want to do these things as early as possible just to be proactive, and so you're not getting in a jam and we're not scrambling as it gets close. So another big question that we'll want to ask is, if you currently have a home to sell, do you need to sell that in order to qualify to purchase, or are you even comfortable potentially having 2 mortgages if you can qualify to buy without actually having to sell? Are you comfortable with maybe having 2 mortgages for a period of a month or 2 months, etc.? So that'll be really the first question, and that'll help dictate the rest of the process and the rest of the strategies that we'll deploy for your move and for making these transactions as smooth as possible. Also, if you are currently renting, then of course, when is your lease up, and are you going to leave at that time? Or are you going to have to maybe extend it month to month? Or are you potentially leaving sooner than the lease ends? So just good information for us to know, so that way we can kind of work backwards, so to speak, and we know what the other steps are the rest of this process. If you're living with family or have some sort of alternate arrangement, then certainly you'll have some more flexibility. So that should help us in this process. But going back to the whole idea of selling and buying and being contingent on selling your property wherever that may be in order to qualify to purchase the property down here, I am very accustomed to working with these scenarios. So of course, working in the Tampa real estate market successfully for years, we do see a lot of people moving from other parts of the country. I understand it can be very overwhelming, which is part of the reason I wanted to put this video together. I've moved myself, over 1,000 miles here to Tampa years ago, and I've helped hundreds of clients do the same. So I do understand what goes into it and how it certainly can be a lot. So again, that question will really help us as we dictate the timing and get a better idea of what your needs are and how to best proceed. I would highly recommend getting connected if you are using a mortgage for your next purchase, is to get connected with a great local lender here. And I have, several great recommendations I can certainly pass on to you. You're more than welcome to work with whoever you want, of course. Just having a great local lender that understands the nuances of the market and is experienced with people that have properties in other markets and potentially are selling and buying, and just wanting to line up those closing dates and make sure everything is as smooth as possible. So some of my buyers want to at least get an opinion from maybe their current bank, which is fine. You can definitely do that. From what we've seen though, and just from an ease standpoint and an efficiency standpoint and just an overall experience, it does seem to be better with a local lender that, again, understands our particular market and someone that you have a strong relationship with. You have a direct point of contact, as opposed to going with a big bank that maybe they're only working during the week and not on nights and weekends, or maybe it's like a nationwide online lender that also you're going to call, a 1-800 number and maybe get different people handling your account. And there just can be some challenges going that route, especially for situations where we've got people moving and, closing dates need to be lined up properly. So a lot of times, again, from an experience standpoint, it seems to work better for my clients to have a great local lender that can really help navigate them through each phase of this move. Another big help with connecting with a great local lender at this stage in the process, because I know sometimes people think, oh, well, I'll wait until it's a little bit closer and, wait until I have a property I'm interested in. But the reality is, when you prepare yourself and you're aware of what the options are, the lenders can certainly give you more information on, your purchasing power and any other points of the process that you need to know to make this as smooth and successful as possible. Again, we want to be proactive and not scramble to the last minute and then have things go downhill when, we could have learned about certain pieces of information ahead of time. Even if you're an experienced buyer, it's always great to just connect with a great local lender at this stage to be able to understand your options and what you can do and what's going to be the best fit for you. And then, of course, understanding your purchasing power and what you're comfortable with buying down here. That'll help dictate the rest of the search and which property types you'll be most interested in and which neighborhoods as well. So then the next piece of that, as I mentioned, as part of the research phase, will be getting a better understanding of what your lifestyle is currently like and what you want it to be once you're down here in Tampa. So if you are from a market that maybe is more similar to Tampa, maybe it's another market in the Southeast US or maybe even within Florida, and you already kind of have an idea what the lifestyle is like and what you want it to be, then that certainly could make it a little bit easier for you to get a picture of what you want in your next home, in your next neighborhood. Now, if you're from a different area, maybe you're from a really small town in the Midwest, for example, and Tampa is like a completely different world for you, then certainly just gathering some ideas on what you want your lifestyle to be like down here. Of course, understanding the previous step of what your purchasing power is going to be will help also dictate that too. And then as part of the research phase, my content and my YouTube videos should really help you with narrowing down different neighborhoods and getting a better idea of what the lifestyle is like in different neighborhoods. So that should be really valuable content for you, whether it's the vlog tours or the pros and cons videos, the map tours, you name it. So that should all help you as you're still in the research phase and start to narrow down maybe some neighborhoods that you like, or maybe even eliminating some as well. Another aspect of the research phase is to evaluate your finances, of course. So in addition to if you are potentially taking out a mortgage, understanding your purchasing power and what you can do. Also, again, evaluating the moving costs and what it's going to entail, and being on the safe side too, and budgeting and evaluating conservatively so you don't end up with too many surprises or get into any hardships once you do continue through this process. So that'll give you, again, a really good idea of what you want your lifestyle to be like. And depending on where in the world you are coming from, whether it's areas that we do see a lot of movement from, like New York or California, cost of living could be quite a bit higher than here in Tampa. So you could be looking at maybe an even enhanced lifestyle than what you had previously in a different market. Also, on the flip side, if you're coming from maybe a small market in the Northeast or in the Midwest, Illinois or Michigan or Ohio, then the cost of living could be a lot different and a lot higher here in Tampa. So you want to take that into consideration as well. So I do have a video on my YouTube channel, if you haven't seen it already, the Tampa cost of living. So that'll give you a good general idea of the cost of living down here and compared to other markets throughout the country. In addition to the research phase, again, depending on what your situation is like, if you do get an opportunity to plan a visit here to Tampa, definitely let me know. And of course, throughout the entire process, let me know of any questions, and we'll help and guide you through everything. Certainly, if you have a visit planned, if you're able to maybe come down for a couple days at this stage, again, roughly about 8 weeks out or so in this research phase. And that certainly could help you be even more comfortable with the area. So in addition to all the research that you've done online, and whether it's speaking with me or speaking with maybe friends and family that might live down here, just gathering a ton of information, actually being able to come down here yourself and get a feel for the neighborhoods and the lifestyle, that should really help you and help us as we continue to move forward in this process. So depending on what your schedule's like, I've had situations, for example, where at this stage, maybe a potential buyer will come down for 3 days, for example, and maybe the first 2 days, especially if they're not too familiar with the area, they'll just want to spend that time just enjoying the areas and having some different things on their list that they want to do and see, and just maybe relaxing too and just enjoying the Tampa area. And then maybe on the third day, on their final day, that's when maybe we see a couple homes at the top of their list. If they've already kind of narrowed down some neighborhoods, then that could be a good opportunity to do so at that time. If you are staying with your current company, assuming you're an employee and you're still going to be with that company and relocating down here, and if you're going for a mortgage, then you'll want to get a transfer letter from your current employer, just confirming and supporting your move, and also what your income, what your compensation will be. So that way you can pass it along to the lender and they can take that into consideration, that you'll have, the steady employment still, and they'll know what the projected income or compensation you'll receive. So that'll be important too in this research phase. And then if you are in that situation, perhaps you could check and see if your company will offer any moving incentive or moving expense reimbursement. So you never know what they may have to offer. So definitely check with them on that. And then that could help offset some of the moving expenses that you'll incur throughout this process. And then also, if you are renting, as we discussed a little bit earlier, you'll want to make sure you give the rental management company or whoever you're renting from ample notice. So If it's an apartment complex, for example, a lot of times I see they require at least a 60-day advance notice. So you'll want to make sure you adhere to that. If it's a different type of rental arrangement, then that certainly could be different, but usually it's between 30 and 60 days. So you'll just want to make sure you give advance notice. That way there's no surprises and no issues as you continue to go down this path. And sometimes if there's not enough notice, then you could be subject to a fine. So again, it's just dependent on your particular rental agreement. And then going back to what we discussed earlier, and then we'll move on to the next phase, depending on what your moving situation is going to be. If you are going to be attempting to sell a property in a different market and close down here in Tampa simultaneously, then again, we'll want to know that. That's really important for us to know, so that way I can be in communication with whoever your listing agent is in your current market, and we can make sure the dates are lining up and the timelines are good and everything is going smooth. And then of course, making sure the lender is aware of your goals, making sure the title company is aware of your goals. So we'll just want to make sure we know that. If you're fortunate enough to be able to buy first and then you'll worry about selling later, then that should help with the timeline. I do see some buyers, especially on the luxury end, that do have that flexibility time-wise and financially to be able to pull that off. So that certainly helps the timeline and eliminating some of the potential hassle and some of the complexities with attempting to line everything up. But if you do find a situation where maybe you are selling and then you're going to be moving into maybe a short-term option for a month or two before you move into your new home down here in Tampa, then as part of the research phase, you'll also want to check out some storage options and just get a better idea, similar to the moving companies, of availability and quotes, just to make sure you're in a good place. If you do, again, have to have some sort of gap where you're moving more than once, you're not just moving from your current place to your new home here in Tampa. So you'll just want to make sure you've got some ideas. Just like moving companies, they tend to book pretty quickly as well. So you'll want to make sure you have an option secured and not go too far into the process and then not have a good option secured. The next phase we enter into is the planning phase. So this will be about 6 weeks out from your move. So this phase will have a lot of logistics involved. So depending on what we discovered in the previous phase of research and discovering if you have a home to sell, and then what your timeline and what your goals are with that, this will help dictate this current phase, the planning phase with the logistics. So now we're talking about confirming your move date, what your intended move date is. And then if you're working with a moving company, then having that option secured and having that scheduled. And then also if you are getting a storage unit, having that secured, having that in place. And also, again, just depending on if there is going to be some sort of gap between your move from your current place to your new place, if there's going to be some short-term housing in that meantime, then you'll want to have that secured as well and in a good place. So by working with me and by working with great professionals, that'll really help eliminate a lot of the stress, or remove it, I should say, because certainly it can be a very stressful process and a lot of moving parts. So certainly I can help alleviate a lot of that, and all the planning, all the research, and all the steps we're taking will definitely help you throughout. So typically what we see when purchasing a home down here in the Tampa area, if it's financing, we're seeing usually on average about a 30-day close. So if we put in an offer, get it under contract, usually that closing date is somewhere about 30 days out. So depending on your situation, we could always ask to extend that a little bit. So maybe in our offer, we put a 45-day close perhaps, if that helps give you enough time to make arrangements and do what you need to do. So just know that everything is negotiable, and it's really all beneficial if we can be as proactive as possible, rather than putting a closing date in, for example, and then a week before closing asking for a different closing date. Certainly there are things that come up in a transaction and we do have to ask for extensions or ask for other arrangements if, something pops up unexpectedly or some sort of emergency. So, rest assured we can help in any of those situations, but always better to be proactive whenever possible. So that timeline I mentioned, the 30 days, again, is negotiable. That's just typically what we see. And depending on the seller's goals, maybe it helps them to have a little bit more time as well. You never know. So that's where, all of us will come together and figure out what the best option is going to be. Also, I mentioned having a relationship with your listing agent wherever that may be. That's going to be important, so that way, again, we can line up the timelines, and also perhaps you can sell your current property and then get the deal closed, get your proceeds, and then perhaps your listing agent can ask for a lease back where maybe you close but then you stay in your home for another week or 2 weeks or a month, whatever that looks like. We've seen that happen down here. So that certainly is an option. We can, go further into a detail at another time if that is something that you are thinking of, but that could also help eliminate the need for, short-term housing or having to move once to, a short-term option, then having to move again to your new home here in Tampa. So my point in this section is that there are definitely a lot of options. Working with, a skilled professional will definitely do you a world of good. So I can't wait to work with you throughout this process and help you during this phase. So you'll also want to just reevaluate the moving costs, reevaluate the budget as well, now that you have some things locked in and lined up with moving companies and other vendors. So you'll just want to take another look, make sure everything's still on track as well in this phase. One quick note about the timeline for contract to close, how we see it roughly is about 30 days. Now that is for resale homes. Now for new construction, that timeline certainly can be different. If it's a move-in ready new construction, it's already built and ready to go, then that timeline can be pretty similar, but some certainly are a month out or 3 months out or 6 months out, depending on the builder and the type of home that you're getting. So in that scenario, we'll need to take another look at the timeline. One of the tricky pieces of new construction is that the target can certainly move. So if you've ever done any projects in your home or just in your neighborhood, you see construction projects going on, you probably know that there's a lot of factors that can certainly push back the timeline. So just keep that in mind if you are going the new construction route, whether it's labor shortages or material shortages or weather or who knows what. We definitely see times where the completion dates are pushed out a little bit. So if you are on a real time crunch and maybe you don't quite have the flexibility, then just something to consider with new construction, that sometimes those timelines can move a little bit. Now we are headed into the prep phase, so about 4 weeks out from your move. So if you do have a home to sell at this time, you're probably under contract with a buyer on that home for sale, and you're probably also under contract on the purchase of your home down here in Tampa. So both of those are some great milestones. Again, we're at about 4 weeks out from your move. So at this time, whether you're in a rental or you're in a home that you own, this is a great time to really start thinking about what items you're going to want for the move and for your new home. So this is a great phase to really start clearing things out, whether it's donating items or selling items, whatever method you choose. It's going to be a great time to do so. So it's really important just to think about what you want to bring with you to your next home, because if you can start to get rid of some of these things now, again, whether it's donating or selling, that's going to help a lot in the long run, because that's less that is going to have to be packed later on in the process in a couple weeks, less that's going to be on the moving truck, and then once you get to your new home, less that you're going to have to unpack and get situated. So this is a great time if you can start to clear things out little by little, things that you already have an idea that you probably won't want or need in your next home. This will help make things more manageable rather than waiting until a week or 2 weeks out from the move and now having all of this stuff to pack up or get rid of. So this will be a great step to be able to start to eliminate some of those things. This phase will also be a good time to start updating or transferring any memberships that need to do so, or if it's, for example, a local gym membership, to be able to give them notice that you will be canceling if that's the case. So being about 4 weeks, 30 days out, a lot of times that's the notice needed to cancel certain memberships and subscriptions. So just something to be aware of at this particular phase, to start updating, transferring, or even canceling some of those membership subscriptions, you name it. Also, if you are getting some sort of short-term housing, making sure that's in a good place and that's secured is going to be important. And then another piece of information is to start scheduling having your mail transferred. So that'll be a great time to do so at this particular phase. Getting closer, now we are in the administration phase, looking at about 2 weeks from your move. So now we're looking at just, again, making sure all the vendors that you plan on working with, everything is secured, everything is good to go, the expectations are aligned and everything's clear and everything is still on track and in good shape. Better to maybe handle any discrepancies or any miscommunication or anything like that now, rather than when it's super last minute and there might not be a lot of great solutions. So just good to have everything secured. Again, whatever vendors you're working with, moving companies, storage, short-term housing, whatever it may be, just making sure that is in a good place heading into your move. Also, one note wanted to make is on furniture. So depending on what your financial situation is, if you have to bring over your current furniture into your new home, then certainly that is an option for you, and maybe that is the best option at this stage. But a lot of times I find that buyers typically would prefer to just sell or donate or leave behind, whatever the scenario is, their current furniture and then get new furniture for their new home, especially if it's a market a lot different than Tampa, where you're coming from. The design and the layout and maybe the colors might just not be a good fit for your new home. So just something to consider, even though of course it would be an added expense, just something to consider rather than having all of your furniture packed up and then having that on the moving truck and taking up space and then having to unpack and unload that once you get there, and then realize it just doesn't quite fit with the new layout of your home. Or maybe you thought your furniture was in really good shape, but just now looking at it in a new home, it just doesn't quite fit the way you thought it would. So a lot of times it can be, if you can swing it financially, a lot of times it can be really beneficial to just sell that, or leave with family or friends, or donate it and not have to even worry about that, or take up space on the moving truck. And then you can have new furniture delivered to you, and we can talk about this in one of the next phases. But you can have the new furniture that fits with the overall layout of the home, the overall style and design of the home, and you're much happier with that particular option. At this time, it'll also be a good idea to just let your dentist or doctors know about your move, and just to close out records there and be able to let them know that you are indeed moving, and just to be on the lookout in the coming weeks or months once you get established with new medical professionals here in Tampa, that they'll likely get some sort of medical record request once you get established. So good for them just to be aware and be on the lookout. That way there's no delays in communication, or it catches them by surprise that you're in a new market, or for whatever reason they miss that request or disregard it. So that way they know you're moving, and be able to let them know and give them a heads up. We're almost there. Now we're in the cleanup phase, which is about a week out from your move. So at this point, most of your belongings are probably already packed up and ready to be shipped off pretty soon. So if that's the case, then you'll just want to make sure, of course, you have the essentials with you that you'll need for a few days or a week while your belongings are in transit. So depending on the moving company's schedule, they may have other stops. So they may end up picking up and getting your stuff, for example, a week before your actual move. So you'll know that information, of course, earlier on in the process based on all the steps we took. So that way you can plan accordingly with what belongings and what essentials you'll need and for how long. Also, this is a really important time to make sure the house is clean and it's in a really good place. Again, whether you're renting or it's the home that you own and maybe you're about to sell that, you'll want to make sure it's clean. Definitely recommend getting a professional cleaner in there. That way they can do a deep clean and everything is in really good shape. And if you're selling the home, your buyers aren't nitpicking things during the final walkthrough, or there's any friction or any like a last minute request that they had because the home isn't clean. So definitely recommend investing in that. Even if you're, a clean person yourself and you've got things in a pretty good place from your perspective, it might still be a good idea to, again, just invest in that professional cleaning so they can do a really good deep clean and there's no issues as you approach closing. On the flip side, would also recommend you schedule a professional cleaner for the home that you're buying and the home that you're moving into, preferably the day of closing. So that way, day of closing happens, everything's closed and funded, you're in good shape. Even if the previous sellers of the home you're purchasing, if that particular seller left it in pretty good shape and it's pretty clean, I don't know about you, I still like to have the deep clean and just make sure that professional cleaning is done. It really makes a big difference for a relatively, fair cost. So I would definitely invest in that. And again, scheduling it on the day of your closing. So that way, once you get there, everything's clean. And then the day after, then you can have the furniture, scheduled to be delivered. And then if you need any appliances, all that can be delivered, for example, the following day. So that way, the day of closing, while the home is fully empty, you get the full deep clean. Everything's professionally cleaned. Everything is good to go for you to get started and moved in. Now we're in the final sweep. So the day before you move out, again, you'll just want to make sure everything is cleared out properly. Once in a while, you see buyers and sellers negotiate certain items to stay in the home after closing. So if you did agree on anything like that, then hopefully those things are still there in place and the buyer doesn't, have any surprises the day of the final walkthrough or the day of closing when there's something missing that should have stayed. So just make sure you're following everything that you agreed on, or if the home is supposed to be vacant other than just the built-in appliances, then again, make sure it was cleaned and everything is in really good shape. And then if you're in a market where there's basements and attics, make sure you check those areas that you didn't leave anything behind. Or in Florida, we don't have those, but if you have a garage, for example, just make sure you take another look, make sure you don't miss anything and you don't inadvertently leave anything behind. So look in every nook and cranny, check out drawers, and just make sure everything is good to go and you don't leave anything behind. So that's what it is, the final sweep, making sure everything is good to go before you head out. And then depending on what your closing situation is, just make sure you do, again, what's agreed on with, if you're leaving a set of keys with the title company and then a set of keys inside the home, then make sure you do that. Or if there's another arrangement that you agreed on, just make sure you do that and everything is good to go and smooth before you head out. All right, congratulations, we made it to the final step. You are in your new home. So as I suggested, hopefully now you've got the cleaner there and everything is deep cleaned and everything is looking great. And then, as I mentioned, perhaps the following day you have it scheduled for furniture or any appliances to be delivered. So that way everything is clean, clear, and ready to go for them to move in whatever furniture or appliances you had ordered. And then of course the moving truck, being able to have that get unpacked, whether it's you or the crew, the staff, whoever you hired, whatever arrangement you made to slowly but surely get that unpacked. If it is a crew doing it, then certainly they'll help expedite that process, so you've got everything moved in and starting to get settled in. Also, I see a lot of buyers like to get the locks changed as well, which is a smart move, especially because you never know. Certainly the sellers, left behind the necessary keys, but you never know if an uncle, has that set of keys as well, or if a next door neighbor has a set of keys too. So my buyers typically like to at least get the locks changed as well. So definitely a good time to do so. And then utilities, hopefully those were transferred over properly and everything is good to go and smooth on that front as well. And one of the last steps now that you are settled into your new home is, if applicable, getting your license and registration changed over and updated. It'll be a process. We have so many different accounts that we have the address associated with. So whether it's again, license and registration or credit cards or bank accounts or anything like that, it'll be a process to get everything switched over. But anything you can think of, just start to update the address so everything is smooth and everything is good to go, and all these different accounts have your most up-to-date information. So that should handle it for all the steps. Again, depending on what your situation is and what your goals are, that'll slightly adjust the schedule a little bit, but this should be a really good complete guide for you to really give you a lot of structure and guidance to the move and help save you some time and some potential hassle and help you maximize your move. So let me know of any questions that you have, and always happy to help, and can't wait to hear more about your particular situation and how we can best help, so we can tailor this whole experience to best fit your needs. All right, that'll do it for today's video, the complete relocation guide. I hope you enjoyed and got some great value from today's video. Let me know in comments if you have any questions, comments, or feedback. And also, if you haven't already, be sure to check out my other videos on my channel. A lot of great, valuable content, regardless of what your needs are and where you're at in your journey, whether it's looking at different neighborhoods around Tampa or even gathering more information on Tampa pros and cons or cost of living. You'll find some great, valuable content on my channel. And whether you're looking to buy or sell in 10 days or 10 weeks, please reach out. All my contact information is in the description box below. I would love to help you win in the Tampa luxury condo market. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon.